Hi, I'm Brett Culp. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I'm a keynote speaker, and my newest film, A Voice That Carries, is coming out on Father's Day weekend right now. And the best piece of advice I have ever received, although it may sound cliche, is that love is always the answer.
Ooh, love is always the answer. I love that, Brett. And I love you, man. I'm so glad that you're here, buddy. You are one of those people that I look to for inspiration and for encouragement and for someone who shows the best of what's possible in the world. And I'm really grateful for you. And I just want to start the show by saying that because it means the world to me that you're here with me. So thank you, brother.
I feel the same way about you, Phil. I feel like, between the two of us on social media, we've shared so much optimism and hope that if people don't have a cavity from all the sweetness at this point, then we're doing it. They're not looking in the right place.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I totally agree. Well, I got to tell you here before we talk about your film and everything else you're cooking with, I got to tell you, I remember, what was it, 3 years ago now almost, for your 40th birthday. Wow, 4 years, holy cow, right? So 4 years ago, I just remember all the wonderful things that people had to say about you. And then I'm like, you know what? This guy's almost unreal. Like, I really liked you. Then I heard that, right? And then we've spent a little more, not as much time as we'd like together, but, I'm like, wow, man, this guy is insanely kind and just super, super good. So Brett, is everything always flowers and sausages, or do you have some tough times too?
Never. I mean, I feel like optimism and hope are a choice that you make about how you see the world. It's not a response to what you're given, because if you can always find the negative things, and I think, we're sort of programmed in our mind for the negative things to really stick out to us. That's a survival instinct. You don't need to see the beautiful stuff. I think for thousands of years, we needed to know if there was a tiger in the bushes, and we were sort of trained to be hyper vigilant for all that. I think that brain is still in us. That instinct is still in us. So that's why the news media hits us with negative things every day. There's never a positive celebration in the news because they know that won't trigger that survival instinct in our brain that causes us to respond. So I think we have to be very intentional with things like hope and faith and optimism and positivity, because I think the world around us is never going to naturally lead us that way. It has to be a choice. So I could list off lots of things that have been wrong just today that didn't go right. The question is, what am I going to dwell on and what am I going to savor?
Yeah, wow, that's great, man. And I would also argue that contrast between the crap and the greatness really makes us appreciate the greatness a whole lot more. Because if it was always sugar, I'd be tired of sugar, man. I mean, really. Sometimes, right, I need umami, right? I need some savory and I need some sweet. So that's interesting. So, Brett, where do you think you got that, man? Your mom she's a wonderful, wonderful musician. Did you get that from mom? Did you get that from dad? I mean, where did you pick this up, Brad?
Well, and you mentioned my mom. My mom is a preschool music teacher, and all through the pandemic, when schools were shut down and she couldn't be, in person, she was doing virtual classes. We even started a little YouTube channel and a Facebook page for her called Sing Along with Miss Jeannie, where she shared videos of her playing on the ukulele. It was super sweet, and I was happy to make it happen for her. And she sort of has that connection to that innocent, childlike vision. My dad, though, is a business builder, a lifetime entrepreneur, and he's pragmatic in that work, but he is also an eternal optimist. He is also believes that just instinctively that the future is going to be good. Because of that, he's a risk taker. Some of those risks have, blown up over the course of his life, as they always do for those that are. But he is not afraid to walk into the fire and take a risk and try something new. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but the times when it does, it's beautiful. So I think the combination of having a mom that's a little bit of Mr. Rogers and a dad that's a little bit of Gary Vaynerchuk, the combination of all that together kind of fused into me.
Wow. Gary V and Mr. Rogers, and we have one and only Brett Culp. Wow, that's great, man. That's pretty good. You should put that in your bio, right? You know, if Mr. Rogers and Gary Vee had a child, it would be Brett Culp. That's great, man. You can quote me. You can put my name next to that. I said that. So, because you know, you can't say that about yourself, probably, right? But that's so fun, man. I love that, and I do see that in you, right? Like I see you absolutely always being a business guy, right? I see you working business. You're making great films. You know, you published a book. You decided to go. Are you still with Kepler, by the way?
I am. I'm exclusive with Kepler Speakers.
Good. So, yep. So you made that decision, right, to go with Kepler, which I think is a great choice, right, to be represented by a great agency with that. And then you do some of these Mr. Rogers type stuff, man. I mean, it's so interesting that you do that. You've got two boys, and they couldn't be more different and yet more the same, which is really interesting, right? I mean, truly, they couldn't be more different and yet more the same. So do you mind, can you share a little bit about your boys? Because I think they help us understand more of who you are and why you are the way you are.
Yeah, you know, my oldest son is Logan, and he's 19, and, you know, his first bit of college got messed up. But he is kind of, I mean, he's a really brilliant kid. He finished high school with his AA, his first 2 years of college done. He was the lead in the spring musical. He plays 3 instruments. He ran in cross country. I mean, he did it all. And now he's 19 years old, living in an apartment with a couple of friends, with a completely paid off car, just got a brand new full-time corporate job while he does while he does college at night and on the weekends, all virtual now. Like, he's taking advantage of that because he's like, I could just do virtual and also work a 40-hour a week office job in a new business. You know, I mean, he's doing all that, plus he's got his Roth IRA going. And like, I was with him and his girlfriend last night, and I was like, what have you guys been doing? And she's like, nothing. He won't spend any money. He won't go anywhere. He won't do anything. He just wants to save all his money. And, you know, and I'm like, he's already got a car. He only buys new clothes like once a year. Like, that's Logan. And then I've got Judah, who's 16 years old, who is like put him on a stage in a musical and he is at home. He plays the ukulele. He walks around the house singing songs and, you know, dreaming dreams. He comes up to me and I want to be an inventor when I grow up. And he's imagination and charm and lovable and hugs. And so I got these 2 boys that, like, I've got pictures of them that are just perfect, where one is like, they're essentially C-3PO and R2-D2. My oldest son is C-3PO. My youngest son is R2-D2. The oldest son is like, stop that. What are you doing? Don't go over there. My youngest son's like, beep, 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 and just getting into all kinds of trouble. And so it's been a journey.
That's so funny. Yeah, I totally saw that when I met them at your party. I was like, wow. These kids, and they're so vibrant, right? They're so full of who they are. And I don't mean that in a braggadocious way. I mean, they're full out Logan and Judah, right? There's no question. They know who they are and they know their place. And I think that's really cool, and that's a great testament to you and your wife. So congratulations for that, my brother. That's really cool. Yeah.
I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that connects us well also to your movie, which I have to tell you that before I ask some questions about it, your new film, Voice That Carries, I want to talk. Brett, you got 2 sons, man, and you do a movie about daughters. Like, how's that work, man? Talk to me about why you felt that was important and why you chose this project.
Yeah, so this new film is called A Voice That Carries. It's my 3rd feature-length documentary film. And it's about the power of the relationship between fathers and daughters, and how fathers really, their voice, their words, their behavior really makes an impact on their daughters' lives. And what we want to do with this film is inspire and empower and equip dads to be that kind of positive influence. Because I think most dads think, oh, when their daughter gets to be about teenage age, this is the time to lean back and, you know, let mom take care of things. But actually, the research is showing it's the exact opposite. That is the time when dads need to lean forward, when they need to be engaged. And so much of their identity and who they are is shaped by their relationship with their father. It affects the way they see relationships for the rest of their life, particularly with other men. And so I ended up, and like you said, I have 2 sons, and I addressed that in the first 5 minutes of the film, you know, that that this was not instinctively a natural project for me, but there was a group, a big psychology practice in Charlotte, North Carolina, one of the biggest in the South. Several of their executives attended one of my screenings of one of my previous films, and they came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, we've actually been talking about doing a documentary about this connection between fathers and daughters. Would you be interested?" And I said, "I don't know, but let's talk about it." I mean, that was 7 years ago, and here we are now. So after I finished the film that I was committed to next, which was Look to the Sky, we sat down and really fleshed this out. And they raised the money. They kind of had the bigger picture vision. And then me and my team brought it together. So it was a learning experience for me. But in some ways, I think that was good because I didn't come in with a lot of bias or, well, this is what worked for me with my daughter. This is the way I handle my daughter. I didn't have any of that. I could come in like a true beginner, a true novice that knew nothing. I'm an amateur, complete amateur at daughters and raising daughters. But what was so interesting in the process was that I realized that the insights and what we were learning was really what all men need to know about every young woman that they have influence on in their life. I mean, this is a bigger picture project than just how you treat a daughter. To say, well, I don't have a daughter, this isn't for me. Well, you're interacting and have influence on young women maybe every day as a leader, whether it's in your work or your personal life. And so I think there's a message in this for everyone.
Wow. That's awesome. What all men need to know about the young women in their life. Wow. That's great, man. I'm excited. You're giving this away Father's Day weekend, which is really, I mean, that's pretty darn cool, man. I think that's a big gift, man. So let's talk about the film here. Let's talk about this. A Voice That Carries is the name of the film, and it is about that relationship. And about, maybe for many of us, I would say, being a beginner in that. I about 2 years ago, I stepped into a relationship, and now magically I have an almost 15-year-old daughter. So I'm definitely going to watch this and definitely learn from that. So Brett, tell me, give me one learning that we can take back here. And we'll talk more, but give me a learning, and then let's go deeper into your other lessons here.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what's so interesting about this project, my past two films were about ordinary people who did extraordinary things. Moments of bravery and courage, and moments or something big that was newsworthy, that was amazing and incredible. This film is different because A Voice That Carries is really about ordinary people doing ordinary things, but the power and the importance of doing those ordinary things with presence, with compassion, and with love. I think if there was a message that got repeated over and over in this film the most, is that what young women need, daughters, I think this is true of sons, but particularly in this relationship between fathers and daughters, is the presence of their father. The physical presence, of course, but that putting the phone down and looking them in the eye and really showing them mentally and emotionally, I am here to be with you. That is the goal of this experience together. I am here to be with you. And I mean, that's a universal experience that we all need. But I think sometimes fathers in particular struggle with really prioritizing that. There's one of the dads we interviewed in the film talked about how, so often with his work, he would justify not being as present. He's looking at his phone, sending emails, because that work is making the money that his daughter needs for school, for clothes, for college, for all those things. And so he justifies it by saying, hey, I'm checking out for mentally and emotionally for 15 minutes here, but I'm doing it for her. Well, maybe, but in some ways, the most important gift you can give is presence.
Wow, that's a humbling message, Brett. That's hard because often as guys we're not wired for that, right? Yeah. We're not wired to think that way, and that's a paradigm shift big time.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, right? So one of our someone watching here, someone by the name of Star Fury, says that he's trying to get to know his daughter, and I think this film will help. We'll make sure we include a link to it for you at the end. Star Fury and Jess Gilbert, who's watching with us, and be proud of your daughter. Congratulations on the numerous awards and the graduation from 8th grade. But Brett, as we shift that, right? So how do we? I mean, where do we start with that, man? Where have some of your folks in the movie started with that to get to the point where they maybe release the fact that, oh my gosh, I've always got to be working, because if I don't, she's not going to get this. How do we do that, buddy?
Yeah, so what we've done with this film, with every single project, every single documentary that I produce, we always create something that's an interactive experience that goes with it. With my previous films, we did these charity screenings all over the world, raised all this money for charity, and we also partnered with organizations like Boys and Girls Clubs of America and all those kinds of places where young people could see these films and be inspired by them. With this one, we've done something unique that's been a brand new experience and adventure for me. In the film, we challenge 5 dads to go on a father-daughter challenge, to take a dad challenge. And in the film, you watch these dads go through this experience of doing things with their daughter they've never done before, experiencing life with their daughter in a way they've never done before, whether it's going more into her world or bringing her into your world. Or number 3, it's about saying things to your daughter you've never said before, specifically taking time to say the things that are in your heart and the deepest part of you to your daughter. So if you watch the film, A Voice That Carries, you'll see these dads take this challenge. And then what we've done on my website is we've given you the opportunity to take that challenge yourself. So this weekend, on Father's Day weekend, you can watch the film for free on my website. Just this weekend. It's a Father's Day gift to you. So at brettculp.com/dads, or just go to brettculp.com, you'll see the link. You can watch the film for free on Father's Day weekend, and then you can click, and for free, you can take the challenge and learn more. And so that's what I would recommend to dads to do, is to take that challenge, to be kind of intentional, because sometimes left to our own devices, we get in our head, we're not sure what to do next. So we wanted to make it as simple and step-by-step as possible. And all of this is free. You don't have to enter your email address. We're not going to put you in a funnel. You're not going to get any messages from us. It is all just for you to take and do with what you want.
Wow. Yeah, I was checking out the challenge. I'm like, those are simple things, but they're simply powerful things, right? They're big things that we can do. Wow, man, that's really cool, and that's a great gift. So 5 fathers you follow throughout here. You said, but 7 years ago, you started talking about this, man. So how do you keep in touch for 7 years to make this come to fruition? I mean, I know it didn't take you 7 years to film it. So talk to us about that process, Brett.
Yeah, so, a documentary or really any film, going from idea to execution, in the first film I made, it was literally 100% me. I raised all the money. I did all the research. I did all the filming, all the traveling, all the editing, ran the focus groups, finished the film, distributed it, organized the screenings. I mean, I did everything. And I think that was good because it gave me a sense of the entire process from beginning to end. And the reality is, even with all the hustle and energy, that was still a 4-year process. From the time I had the idea to then researching, developing, raising the money, filming, editing, doing the focus groups, refilming, re-editing after realizing in the focus groups all the things you didn't do, then premiering it and spending a year and a half screening it, doing Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, all that. By the time you do all that, it's a 4-year journey. But now I'm in a different situation because, as you mentioned, I'm doing all these keynotes as well. So, pre-COVID, I was doing 50 to 60 keynotes at live in-person events a year. Last year, even with virtual, that didn't change very much. I just didn't get on planes. But that's ramping back up again, which I'm super excited about. July, August, September. It's getting really wonderful, and I'm super excited about that. But now, because I'm doing all that, it requires more teamwork. It requires more partnerships. So if you look at the credits, the closing credits for this film, there's a lot more names, that were producers, editors, executive producers, lots of different people. It's an 8-person team between the raising of them and all that. So because of that, and because these projects are so grassroots and so heartfelt, the discussions, the process, there are stops and starts, there are false turns, and somebody works on something and they work on it for 6 months and then they bring their results back to the team and we're like, that didn't work. Let's start from scratch and do it again. There's just a lot of that in the process. So in some ways, even though the partnership allowed me to maximize my resources, it was also much slower, which I think everybody knows with partnerships and teams, you move slower sometimes. But I think at the end of the day, I'm happier with what we've done. And I'm looking at it as a model that's sustainable, because I could not do what I did with my first film, Legends of the Night. I could not do that again. I would die. It was a real push. But I wasn't thinking at the time, how do I do this 3 times? I just wanted to do it once. And now it's different.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Now it's totally different. I love the fact that you had a team to help you, because for sure there's so much that goes into this and so much work behind the scenes that we don't even get to see. I mean, because the movie ends up being what, about 65 minutes? Is that right?
Yeah, it's 70 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, 70 minutes. So it's like, man, to cut that much down into just 70 minutes has gotta be harrowing, man. So is there what lessons do you have for us for kind of cutting out to keep the story alive? Because that's gotta be hard, man.
It is, and I, and in this one, we also had the dads and the daughters vlog, journal throughout the process. So they're taking these challenges, and every time they do a challenge, they'd get out their iPhone and they'd talk for 10 minutes, each one of them. And sometimes, like some families, there was a dad and 3 daughters. And so, that's different than when I would go out and just film just what I needed. I might go and film a story that would end up being 5 minutes in the film, and I come back with 4 hours of raw footage that I'm going to distill down to 5. That's fine. But each one of these families, we would get, dozens of hours of raw footage of these people just talking. And we cast these people because of their ability to be articulate, because they could express themselves clearly. So they're a diverse group, but that's what unifies them, is that articulateness. And so I think it was challenging to do it. But for me, I remember years ago, I was watching the special features for Lord of the Rings, and Peter Jackson was talking about adapting the Lord of the Rings books into these 3 movies for the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. And he said, when we were in the screenwriting process and we were talking through it, essentially what we decided is, if it didn't have to do with Frodo, or if it didn't have to do with the ring, we cut it. Those were our 2 reference points that we were always looking back to. And I feel like we've had to do that. I've had to do that for these documentary projects as well. There were a million side trips we could have gone down. And I think that's true of everything, whether it's branding, marketing, storytelling, anything. When you write a nonfiction book, you can go down all those rabbit trails, because you can kind of just make another chapter about it, make it a sub-chapter, make it a whatever. But documentary filmmaking and short form storytelling of any type, I mean, documentary is long, but still it's short. I mean, 65 minutes, 70 minutes is not a long time, particularly when you can't, in that sort of format, people aren't sitting there with a pen writing notes, stopping for a minute, writing in the margins. It's coming at them full speed, and they don't stop it. Even though ideally they might press pause and take some notes, they're not going to. They're just going to keep taking it in. So the reality is, you can only make a few points. You can only say a certain number of things. So with every project, we figure out what our Frodo and the Ring are. And what are they? What are we going to say? And then if it doesn't really align with that, even if it's good, we have to cut it out and leave it out and put it somewhere else.
Ooh, I like that, right? We have to find our couple of key points, and stay focused on that. And if it doesn't fit that, then we cut it out. Brett, that's really, really sharp. And I would say that's likely probably a good way to write our speech too, right? If we're giving keynotes and we're getting in front of folks. I mean, training is one thing, but keynote speeches, if you get 40 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, we've got to condense that down and fit that in. Is that how you craft your keynote as well, Brett?
Absolutely. The reality with my keynote presentations is I'm making 1 point. 1 point. That's it. 1 point. And then I have 3 kind of sub points that all point to that 1 point. And then I have stories. And so then you take a point. This is my point. I'm going to take 10 minutes to make that point, but that's because I'm also going to tell you 2 stories and an anecdote and something funny, but all of it's just again and again the repetition of the 1 point. Now the trick is to find new ways, fresh ways within the 45 minutes to an hour to say that 1 point over and over again. But at the end, that's it. You want it like buried in their guts, like in their soul. That's what they're doing, but they don't feel like you're saying the same thing over and over again. That's the tricky part. They feel like they're getting fresh insight the entire time, but really all you're doing is saying, okay, there's an elephant in the middle of the room. I'm going to describe this elephant to you. Now, first I'm going to stand over here and describe it. Then I'm going to stand over here and describe it. Then I'm going to stand over here and describe it. Then over here. And I've gone all the way around the circle. And by the time I finish my 45 minutes, I've only described one elephant. I've just given you all the angles of it so you can really clearly see it and feel it as vividly as possible.
Yeah, because we're all standing at a different spot with the elephant, right? That's the thing. I might be here on my journey, I might be here on mine. I mean, that's the different perspectives if we go back to Lord of the Rings, right? Sometimes it's Frodo's story, but sometimes it's Bilbo's story, right? Sometimes it's a little bit different, right? But certainly we come back to Frodo's story in the ring. So that perfectly makes so much sense, buddy. That's good. That's good. I love that. So Brett, let's get back to your movie here, and then let's talk a little bit about superheroes, because I love your take on Aquaman and Batman. It's very different. So bring us back to the key point for a voice that carries for folks so that they can get that. And folks, if you're listening here, right, get a voice that carries. Go to Brett's website, brettculp.com/dads. Take the Dads Challenge, right? Go check it out, because you can get this for free Father's Day weekend, thanks to my friend Brett. So Brett, talk to us about the key lesson, please, brother.
I mean, if I were to summarize, and I hate to do this as a filmmaker, it's like giving away the whole movie without you watching it. So I want you to watch it. So I'm going to tell you, but then part of our agreement here that you don't get a choice in is that you're agreeing to go watch the movie anyway, even though I'm giving it away to you. I think the key message of this film is that the ordinary moments matter more than we think they do. I think men, particularly, tend to think that the best thing I can do for my daughter, for maybe my wife, for my partner, whoever, is to spend a month working on this giant one thing. And that will be the greatest gift that I could give to my son, my daughter, my wife, whoever. My partner, my spouse, whoever it is. The reality is that it's much more, the research shows that emotionally, in terms of true relationship building, it is much more about how you treat the ordinary moments than whether or not you do the gigantic big moments. Relationships are built in the simple, everyday words and behaviors. That's how trust is built. That's how confidence is built. That's how joy is built, in that sense of presence. And so what we've tried to show over and over again in this film is how to be more present, how to do that, how to take moments that seem like the everyday moments and really make them count, how to really make them deposits in the love bank of your daughter and of your loved ones. And I think that's the foundation of building trust in any relationship, but particularly in a family where you're sharing those ordinary moments together. How do we take a boring, everyday breakfast or running errands or going grocery shopping? And how do we make that a moment for deepening bond, for teaching values, for building deeper connectedness and love and connection? And that's really the essence of this film. That's really what we wanted to say. And so for anybody who has a heart to build that kind of deeper connection, this is A Voice That Carries is made for you. You're not going to see in this film a lot of stories where you're going to say, wow, that's amazing. That person swam for 28 hours and raised $1 million for charity. This film isn't like that. My previous films were. This film is about empowering you and really opening your eyes to that. And that's what we hope that A Voice That Carries will do in the world.
Wow. That's awesome, man. That's a great wrap here. You and I are going to talk a little bit more privately here about superheroes, but I really think that's a perfect place to leave folks here. How do you take the ordinary moments and deepen the moment with your loved ones? That's a great Father's Day challenge. It's a great Mother's Day challenge. It's a great everyday challenge. Brett, you're inspiring, brother. I'm so fortunate that I get to spend time with you because you're my friend. I know that everybody that watches and that hears this is going to be inspired as well. Folks, if you want to get to know Brett, go to brettculp.com. Check him out. BRETTCULP.com. Check him out. If you add /dads and it's Father's Day weekend, you're watching this live, that's why we got him on today, folks. So you could hear this. You can get it for free. Otherwise, get the movie. Spend some time and focus on those everyday moments just like this. Brett, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, dude. This was great.
Thanks for having me on, Phil. I appreciate your energy and your heart in the world. Thanks for being you, brother.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks, everyone, for listening, for watching, and for being you. Now go out there and make the ordinary extraordinary.